Jax, but we'll have to wait and see because the Azir is still left up and open for a scout, and he's more than happy to take that matchup into a Tristana.
And now it's just pocket picks, isn't it? Or rather picks that are just comfort, I should say. Not pocket to the meta, but there's Sejuani, one of Tarzan's best champions, Kitty. Guess what? Scout still has the Azir. They can lock it in, make sure FoFo doesn't get it. Boom. That's two very iconic picks for LNG.
And you also deny the Sejuani away from Jiejie. So now the question is, what is Jiejie going to play in the jungle? Because we have both the Maokai and the Sejuani gone. And the only 4 champions that he's played so far is something like the Skana and the Ivan. And obviously the Ivan didn't really work out. But with the Rel getting locked in now and also paired alongside the Tristana, that could both be flexed towards the bottom side.
Again, we'll wait and see which direction they go. Do LNG pick up the Alistar here, Kitty? That's my question. Or do they pick up an AD? So they do have priority here first.
I'm assuming it's going to be a top pick. It is going to be the Rumble Hover. I wanted to talk about this champion. Zika has played it once in the summer playoffs, although it was a loss, but it still did relatively well in the lane. But it does seem like Zika going to go for the Renekton versus Jax matchup, where it is going to be about skill, but towards the later stage of the game, it is going to be heavily Ala favored. But you do have a time frame to work around Zika and Tarzan to really shut down this Jax.
It's a different matchup from yesterday. Zika was used to going up against 369 and plays a lot of tank matchups, who stagnates lane a bit and then is about the team fight. Ala is a much more ferocious laner. We'll see now that he's got his Jax what he can do in this second game to get EDG a tie, as away from Uzi, they're going to take that Lucian. Another iconic pick that I guess he's been also flexing around as the AD carry pool keeps getting slimmer.
Yeah, I'm really curious on what EDG is going to do about that bottom side, because it is a common trend for EDG to drop the AD carry priority towards the 4th and 5th pick. But with the current meta and Xayah and Kai'Sa getting taken away, Uzi has shown us champions like the Ezreal, like the Sivir, defaulting back to comfort. Potentially that's where EDG approach this game too.
I was going to say, Kitty, with things like the Azir, as Sivir gets taken away as well, things like the Renekton, maybe Ezreal's all you have left here. But will Gala just snag that away? I mean, that's the next question, because right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 AD carries taken away from both Gala and Uzi, but also remembering that we can have that Tristana down to the bot side as well, Kitty, which with everything being pinched out, that might end up being the reality.
The problem is I'm not too sure if EDG even want to flex this Tristana towards the bottom lane, because what is FoFo going to play, right? I mean, you can play something like the Ahri that can work really well in terms of gap closing onto long-range AD carries like a Varus, or even Scout on this Azir. But as Gala locks in this Varus, EDG, they need to get hard CC to really lock down this immobile AD carry, while they still have champions like the Nautilus available.
Okay, tell me what else. Is Leona an option here? Do we see anything else with hard CC that's up and available that you should mention right now?
I mean, I think Uzi and Meiko just need a winning 2v2, because we already see that from the previous fight, it wasn't, I guess, early game or anything else. It was just the connection between Uzi and Meiko in particular. As Zeri gets locked in 2 games in a row. To be fair, it did do relatively well in the early game. Uzi managed to pick up 2, I believe 3 plates in the early game. But still, it didn't translate into anything more than just gold.
And look, Meiko, as you said, you know, Nautilus really the only thing left open for a bit more engage. At least this time he's going to be accompanying Jiejie. You wanted to see them link up. We have it with the Rel here, as this is about to get locked in. And we have a bit more front line to build up for Uzi this time around.
Hung can just play something like the Alistar, go for a winning 2v2, and really,
what else?
Braum?
Yeah, I like that, Kitty. Your timing.
I meant Braum. I didn't mean Alistar. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Braum, as it does do extremely well into the melee champions like the Rel and the Nautilus, and it does provide a winning 2v2 and extra peel for your carries. EDG, they have huge dive champions coming into this game too as well, but we'll have to wait and see if that is going to get locked in. But LNG, this is a very LNG composition. Either Gala's on the Varus or the Ziggs, where they play with range and they play team fights extremely slow. But 2 games in a row now, Scout having his Azir, that is going to be the point in contention, because we saw this Tristana and Azir from game 1, and the Tristana didn't really offer too much in the early game, and they defaulted to 5v5s.
Lane wasn't that explosive either, right? I mean, Jiejie on the Ivan failed to link up with the pick that you play the Ivan for in most cases. So EDG, they've got a lot to prove here in the second game. As Kitty, run me through a little bit about the change in draft. We got the Nautilus this time instead of the Alistar. Jiejie on something that can engage in Xi'an, in Chiujiang Sports Center. Props to that guy. He was upset that LNG didn't have a firing squad in the crowd. Of course, the cheering squad, you guys know what I mean. EDG have so many fans behind them here today. They just want to see Uzi at Worlds. They want to see the man who last hit the world stage in 2019 on his only Worlds representative organization in RNG. Finally make it on a different squad. Again, it was a big deal that he came out of retirement, that he came back. He's a father now, isn't he, Kitty? He's a husband, he's a father. Imagine making it to Worlds as a dad. Oh man, I'd be so proud.
Imagine going to school and saying, hey guys, my dad is Uzi, who played
the kid's not that old yet.
I mean, at one point, the kid's going to start going to preschool, and they're going to be like, oh my god, your dad is Uzi?
Maybe one day we'll get to cast Uzi and Doombee's kids, you know, head to head. Imagine the dream. Oh, that's something I've been looking forward to, and only the thoughts that yours truly would think about it is off time. But we're into game 2, and Kitty, jokes aside, well, actually, it's not a joke, it's probably pretty real. I want to ask you a little bit about this 2v2 that this time has changed up again.
It's going to be rough, with the Braum being that final counter pick for Hung. Varus already naturally more strong in that early game compared to something like the Zeri with the Hail of Blades as well. EDG's bottom lane is going to struggle quite a bit, as you already see Jiejie slowly pathing towards his bottom side just to give extra pressure for Uzi to do well in this lane. But LNG, on the other hand, you have Tarzan starting that top side, and I feel like it's going to be very important to get Zika ahead on this Renekton, because he's kind of your leeway that allows champions like the Varus and the to reach that late game.
But how much harder it's going to be with EDG tracking him. Tarzan on a ward here on the Raptor camp, so they know that, well, pathing towards bot side, it's an intelligent ward that gives information that Tarzan will eventually be down here, but Jiejie using this timing window to try and pick up a camp or a surprise party, seeing if Tarzan walks in.
You often see the Rel getting picked into the Sejuani, as the Rel does have faster clear in the jungle, as the blue buff does get started by Jiejie. Bottom lane does have a lane party, so Meiko can make a visit towards here. It is going to be a smite battle though. Does Tarzan get spotted?
And waiting now, at least patience comes through. Meiko's making the roam, but FoFo has priority towards mid. Smite goes down. Jiejie picks it up. Good early game start here for EDG's jungle.
That's exactly what you want to see, a link up between the support and jungle of EDG, as they just take away Tarzan's buff. He no longer has the tempo to really go towards that top side and split up the map, where it's still viable for LNG, as you do have a Renekton in the top side. A bit of a trade coming out of Zika and Ala.
Counter-strike down, Ala not getting anything from it, and Zika showing that this matchup can go both ways.
Does feel like Ala is going to TP back into the lane, as Zika does have a slow push as he needs to get that under the tower. But Zika, I mean, this entire playoffs, with how he came and showed himself in that JDG series, he is definitely the most improved player, for me at least, for this entire summer split.
I mean, again, he was the most expensive buyout. If anyone missed out on the start of the year, this guy came from IG. And this IG top laner was so expensive for what I thought was a very low name value. But LNG Kitty obviously saw something, saw that this guy was such a prodigy. And again, he got to the grand finals. He stood toe-to-toe with 369. Now against Ala, we're saying the same thing after a game 1. As I just want to remind folks at home that, again, that deep ward was focused in on because LNG's jungle was able to drop it, back away, and get a bit of information gain about what's happening with Jiejie's jungle.
And this is a great start for Jiejie, right? You see him getting triple buff against Tarzan in this first 5 minutes, and you also have Tarzan getting a little bit lost on the Sejuani, not being able to secure that extra Raptor, which he could have gone for, which the observers did show us on. With the slow push in this top lane now, Tarzan's looking for a bit of a counter gank here. I mean, the jungle of EDG's not even here.
The wave needs to be pushed out. I mean, Ala already leapt on in. Depends on Zika here as Tarzan waits in brush. Ala going to be spotted on this ward as he crawls down, looks for Tri-Brush. Tarzan might have timing here as the wave again's being held. This is not good for Ala as he walks on in. He wants it to crash, but Zika's not going to let it happen. LNG's top side and jungle lie in wait for the play. Counter-strike's there. Now it's down, but we're still waiting. Tarzan waiting for the leap strike. The patience huge, the flash there as Arctic Assault needs to come next, but Zika's one shot away. Ala can actually turn this poorly into LNG's back pocket. but it depends. The push comes through anyway, and LNG maybe too patient for their own good.
And at the end, with the expensive flash, he gets the wave in and allows EDG to pick up this first dragon of the game. We saw a bit of a hesitancy coming out of Tarzan and Zika because Zika took a really bad trade before they went for the gank onto this Jax, and that unfortunately didn't work out for the side of LNG. And you really see EDG, especially Jiejie, putting a lot of effort into getting Uzi ahead for game 2.
And again, hitting that same mark as Meiko takes a heavy trade from Gala and Hung. Uzi just trying to send it right on back as Winter's Bite narrowly avoided. Jiejie giving them safe travels back towards their own turret. As importantly enough, Kitty, that first dragon, again, hits that same mark that EDG have been trying for over playoffs and over the regular season.
A relatively slow start for both teams as there hasn't been a first blood, but something that does interest me is that Gala has gone for the tier, so he wants to go the Manamune lethality Varus for this game, working alongside the range of this Azir in the mid lane as well. So they do need to play the team fights relatively slower compared to EDG, where they have hard forces coming out of Jiejie and Meiko once again.
So walk me through a little bit more about how LNG should play out once they have items on their board, right? Renekton, Sejuani, Varus, especially with poked Varus. It feels like this one item point is a bit of a power spike for LNG.
The great thing about LNG's composition is pretty much everyone on this team has a self-engage. You have many stuns coming out of the Sejuani, even Gala on the Varus. That's why Varus is such a high-value champion, because he does have something like the Chains of Corruption that can completely zone out an entire corner of the map. But I feel like LNG, they just need to force 5v5s before this Jax comes online, before he hits 3 items, and before he starts putting pressure in that side lane, where Zika will no longer be able to match him.
So Dragon's important then, because I feel like for EDG, getting that first Dragon, it lengthens the game out, gets that side lane into a better spot, and of course gives them more opportunity for Ala to get items and push the time on.
Yeah, most definitely, but we do have, once again, these double static shift coming out of the AD carries of EDG in the Tristana and the Zeri. I'm gonna be real, I like the Kraken on Tristana just a little bit more because I feel like Tristana already has great wave clear to begin with. You have the passive from your E as well, but I mean, it feels good one-tapping the wave, right?
I guess it does, and again, with even more ease than before. I need to pause on that though, because Jiejie's coming towards top side. This will be an all-in as Dominus now used. Arla the same with the Grandmaster's Might, but he's run out of mana. Jiejie has to play defensive now. The Shattering Strike is exactly that. Tarzan runs into a world champion jungler and says go away as Zika just sends him outward.
Ala no TP and no mana, so LNG, they do have a time frame to start up this Rift Herald, and if this gets plopped either towards the mid lane or towards this Varus, these items are going to come online ASAP, and I feel like that's exactly what LNG want, looking for early game 5v5s to really deny EDG from getting that 1-3-1 composition online.
As you said, forcing up, pushing EDG into an uncomfortable position when they're not ready. I think importantly enough, now could be one of those times as LNG have a bit of an angle here with Hung now roaming up as well. Meiko makes the move, but LNG already got Herald.
And LNG already see that they have such defining macro calls. You have Gala even hovering towards the mid lane where it does allow Uzi to pick up an extra few waves in the bottom, but Gala being very decisive and moving towards bottom lane after the Rift Herald gets spawned does mean Uzi isn't going to be able to pick up too many plates, just one. And
Gala doesn't miss anything as Chains of Corruption does come out and Uzi just does a nice sidestep, but yeah, look, at the very least, Uzi was able to get a bit of turret plating there. So 175 in the back pocket with the Herald traded away. So far, so good here as the early game, as you were saying, for LNG. Small gold lead, but importantly enough, it's those macro decisions that are showing us confidence as even without Chains of Corruption, Hung wants to make the engage. The Glacial Fissure at the ready, he flashes, but the concussive blows, the Winter's Bite doesn't connect, but now here's Tarzan. Everything committed for the kill, and Gala getting first blood again.
But Tarzan is all over the map after taking the Rift Herald. He just goes straight away towards his bottom side, not resetting whatsoever, and getting that kill onto Meiko, putting EDG's bottom lane completely out of expectation.
And again, it's the same deal. Tarzan likes this bot lane. He sees the name Gala, he goes, oh, yes, please. And once again, the 2v2 kitty set up for success in a more potent lane in the Varus that we know. With that one item is going to blow things out of proportion.
And most people, they get brainwashed with, oh my god, we need to kill Uzi here. But we need to remember that Uzi, he has the flash, he has the cleanse, most importantly. So Hung instantly flashing and autoing onto Meiko. Although the Nautilus did have the flash and ended up flashing the Brom Q, the great follow-up from Tarzan, just very cutthroat decision-making from LNG. And now, Gala getting that first blood means he gets the Youmu's online.
Oh yeah, and again, with the poke Varus, Kitty, when we see that comp in front of us, we know who's going to be able to tank that up at this point, who's going to be unfazed by the damage that Gala's putting forward.
And something that's going to be very concerning for the side of EDG is that LNG, they have very tanky frontline. They have a Renekton, they have a Sejuani, so they desperately rely on FoFo getting that Lord Dominic's as that third item before they start doing consistent damage, and especially if they want to play front to back, if they do decide to opt into those type of win conditions.
5 seconds to get a bit of an answer there as FoFo does the all-in into Scout. He doesn't have his crown if he goes that direction for this game yet. As Tarzan jumps into Uzi, but it is very safety first as Jiejie now finds the timing onto Scout. He shoves away, he flashes away, he gets out, but Kitty around the dragon, this might be a window for EDG.
Where did Meiko's Hex Flash go to? Because yes, Scout had to use the Emperor's Divide and flash away, but I swear Meiko was channeling his Hex Flash towards the river. Now with 3 people showing in the mid lane, Uzi is completely zoned out from his bottom lane tier 1, and that's 4 or 3 plays into Gala's pockets.
Again, the golden boy is getting everything for LNG, hand-delivered on a beautiful silver platter. As Herald disappears, it's more gold for the Varus that is going to be closer towards that Manamune. As Jiejie now tries to make an appearance up topside, Kitty, it feels like EDG want to push this game back into a more stagnant position before LNG's gold starts showing. As Zika's still okay. He's got flash, he's got ulti, he doesn't care. While on the bot side, meanwhile, Tarzan is just picking up Dragon.
Jiejie is completely running out of options as he is just default running towards that top side, but Zika with the flash, like you said, isn't going to be under too much threat while LNG pick up that dragon for themselves. But once again, Uzi and Meiko left on an island in this bottom lane, and Jiejie doesn't really want to attempt in saving them.
We talked about it before. I mean, it's not like RNG. It's not like the RNG of 2018 that played around bot side. It's not what Uzi's used to. EDG a little bit scattered, and we know that this team doesn't hard force bot. Like LNG, where Tarzan loves to sit and babysit.
I have a feeling EDG only play Protect the President when Jiejie has that Sejuani in his pockets.
Yeah.
If man has Sejuani in these games, he is living in the walls of the bottom lane and helping Uzi, going for those tower dives and completely shutting down the enemy team. But this game too, that's what exactly Tarzan's doing to Uzi, and this Zeri is really struggling to find any gold experience because of how much zoning Tarzan and Hung have been able to put in that bottom.
And this time Gala's got more range, right? You know, the Kai'Sa last game, it was AD, it wasn't the W poke that you're scared about as the range develops with 2-3 items. Uzi might have a static shift, but Gala this time is on the Youmuu's Varus. The lethality going to start hurting as LNG try and play around Gala for the time being. The push comes through from EDG, trying to gear up for Herald Kitty that's up in about a minute 30.
It's not going to be too much of a concern if Gala is slightly ahead in gold, although he has the flash available on this Varus. Something like the Meiko ultimate that can lock down onto their mobile AD carry will make him extremely vulnerable to so much gap closing from EDG, right? So as long as they have clear decision making and they instantly engage onto the LNG ADC, it should be relatively fine. But like you said, the Rift Herald is going to be a very important key for EDG's win con because of FoFo.
Oh, Gala might have graded for this turret, but it depends. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, hang on, Gala full engages, depth charge, Jiejie doesn't get the Magnet Storm, but a new target arises in Hung. He's healed up, saved by the day. Uzi will also surge into Lightning. Won't find any kill here as EDG try to make a counterplay while Tarzan was spotted topside.
And that's 3 major ultimates used by EDG without a single kill going to their pockets. Although LNG Gala, he had to use the double summoners, he's going to still stay full health in this mid lane, while EDG, they're forced to reset on the tempo.
Now let's also remember, Kitty, that even though nothing's really happening here as we look at the replay, EDG do have specific win conditions. I'll ask you about it. We'll talk about it after this because I want to talk about how Jiejie couldn't find the mark.
I'm gonna be real, I think Gala's probably thrown out 3 chains of corruptions and only one of them has hit, as that one just missed right in front of us. But Gala, I mean, Hung on this Braum has been able to defuse every single engage, or at least attempt from Meiko and Jiejie. And once again, the Rift Herald is going to get started, but we need to emphasize how important these Rift Heralds are going to be for Tristana compositions, but you can't be giving these away.
That's why I was gonna ask you, I mean, EDG still gold is relatively even, bar 1,000 in LNG's back pocket with the kill and some of the lane leads that we're seeing on our screen. But Kitty, not a bad game status. We see the teleport towards topside looking for the dive. Zika takes the turret shot, but meanwhile Scout's here, the shove out, no chances given over while FoFo gets the turret as a trade. This is going to be kill and turret for LNG, however, so at least getting more money in their back pocket.
Poor Ala left on an island
That was
in this
everyone,
top side. It was absolutely everyone as LNG committing all 5 members towards the mid and top side. But it is going to be a tower for tower trade. I doubt FoFo can get this tier 2 tower on the bottom side.
Jiejie, can he make a kill happen to this? There's the crash down. FoFo now starts charging away. Rocket jump in, but Zika's over the wall as Herald in the meanwhile. This is going to be a serious charge.
Great dash away from Zika as well, not needing to flash. But like you said, 2
In-hip
towers in the top side, and it's going to get a 3rd charge, Hysterics.
Scout just sitting here again. We talked about the macro of LNG, and despite EDG trailing, LNG getting so much as in-hip turret almost drops down. Scout is a couple of hits away from just finding an open top side at 16 minutes in the game. There's ulti though from Ala, wants a kill onto Scout's Azir. Ala, oh, he finds it. And the crowd finally sees EDG awake.
A huge solo kill, punishing Scout for overstaying in this top side. But still, LNG walk out of this play with 3 top lane, or at least 3 Rift Herald charges and taking down 2 towers. And that plays into how LNG, they can start putting up vision for this upcoming Baron.
But Kitty, I want to bring it back to what we talked about. You told me for EDG, I mean, playing side lanes, playing the map a bit, even though there's an Elo graded to top lane thanks to Scout, we have to be real. Gold isn't that far off, even with this turret just taken in front of our eyes. It's only about 1,000 for LNG, and we did talk about how EDG will get to the point where they might not be able to be matched in side lanes, and they will, again, have the scaling on their side too.
Yeah, the great thing for both of these compositions as Tarzan goes in.
Yeah, onto FoFo. He might be caught out. There's the flash permafrost, the Winter's Bite to set up, the passive blows coming through, but a great ulti from FoFo. It's in disengages. Zika's coming through with a flash available. Doesn't pull the trigger. Onto Dragon now as LNG have zoned EDG away.
They still have the Chains of Corruption, so they can look for a turn, but Ala, he's looking for the flank.
I mean, this Jack's flank, this is what Ala's all about. Into the fray, there's the engaged Jiejie there. Ala jumps in, but he's on to Gala instead. He doesn't care about the rest of the fight as FoFo jumps in. EDG finally, they get something in this series. Good morning, Edward.
A 4-for-0 trade for Edward Gaming, and now they're going to secure themselves this tier 1 tower and also get that 2nd dragon into their pockets. This is the Ala that we've been talking about ever since the start of playoffs, and you shouldn't give him the jacks.
This crowd is so biased, man. But I tell you what, it's because EDG fans have come out at least 50-50 to support Uzi and this new squad, but now why shouldn't they be happy? EDG in a firm position.
And hey, that's great tracking on the summoners for Gala. His flash is quite literally seconds away from coming online. So EDG, you saw them committing every single ability into locking down this Fed Varus. And that's one of LNG's major DPS gone, or at least zoned out of the conversation. And once again, Ala on this Jax, getting that huge TP flank ward at the blue buff really sealed the deal for this side. But once again, the replay in the top side, I feel like Scout was just a little too over-ambitious with this play. Without the Emperor's Divide, the Jax will just naturally win in the 1v1.
Arlo getting that first kill, and then Kitty another here as he all-ins on Gala.
Yeah, they had no idea that EDG had a flank onto the AD carry of LNG, right? And you saw a bit of a disconnect as they were so scattered. And once again, I mean, just the amount of mobility and hard engage that EDG have, this was the perfect scenario for them to take, and they take absolute control over the map.
Operation Kill Gala successful. They're getting revenge for the last game as not letting him free fire as we might have another fight onto Hung. That's good burst damage. They're unable to finish the job. Uzi doesn't reach over the side as well as LNG back off.
Oh, but look at Ala. He's already making his way towards that bottom tier 3 tower. LNG, they feel like they're slowly suffocating because of this 1-3-1 composition as items are slowly coming online. Ala working towards a second.
So tell me, what do LNG do here? Because again, you talked about the team fighting, you talked about the front to back. It feels like, what, do they force now?
Does seem like they're going to force a 4v4.
Well, Tarzan, the only one there. That's a TP flank. FoFo might be in a bad spot as the Glacier Prison. Rather, the Tomb sets them up. Meiko and Jiejie slowed on down. Zika now spotted on the waters. FoFo re-engages. Uzi now here as well. They want a team fight. Ala, now that he's joined in as well, all it takes is a counter-strike, and LNG are in danger. They move back to their turret, though. They're not going to overforce. LNG, again, playing the smart play.
That means Zika no longer has the TP to match Ala in the side lane.
True.
A huge problem for LNG to deal with now, so they can only allow Scout to go towards the bottom side, which can, I guess, at least go even against this Jax.
You were telling me, though, moments before that little fight, Kitty, what do LNG do here? You need to give me some insight.
I know, but LNG, I don't know if you saw this, Gala missed his ultimate again, and that is such a huge AoE that LNG desperately rely on, because you see Hung using his ultimate to try to get their hands onto Meiko and Tarzan, using that as a follow-up, but without the Chains of Corruption, well, Scout's not going to be able to really follow up, and LNG, they need to keep forcing 5v5s until they win.
And so again, you're saying they need these tools available. I like that you mentioned Gala, that ulti now back up as the cooldown is not that long with ability haste in the build for the double lethality, or rather double poke that's now built up with the Manamunate. We'll be close to the Mirror Mana shortly as Gala at level 11. Someone to watch here is Scout, maybe the same as well, onto Arla. Crown will be shattered for the time being on this 2-item Azir as Arla continues playing the side lane and continues playing that condition you talk about, Kitty, where EDG are controlling both elongated lanes. Even FoFo's finally having a good game too.
Well, you see LNG, they are desperate in finding an engage towards the weaker side as Scout, he's so pushed out as well, so I'm getting a little bit worried if EDG do decide to wrap around there, but no, it does seem like Jiejie and FoFo are going to be linking up towards this top side, and Zika on this Renekton, it feels like he's running out of time.
A lot of engage coming through in this little choke as well. On a ward though, Meiko and Jiejie not going to pull the trigger of their own as LNG are moving up once again. There's Dominant Zika was lying in wait. Buffered though from FoFo as great as Jiejie now has to get out of there. There's the Magnet Storm as he's stuck in place. Chains of Corruption again. Kitty, you said Gala needs to land an ulti. It's flashed away from this time, and EDG make it out, but not unscathed.
And EDG diffuse the situation. The Q hits onto Uzi, but they are just going to walk away scratch-free with the Baron still up and available. And of course, the Soul Point spawning in 1 minute as well. So you see Ala already putting a lot of pressure towards that bottom side, fixing the wave and letting them have both mid and bot control. This is going to be a fight that EDG want to take.
Now, I might have a bronze mentality, but Kitty, I think my diamond mind today at least is telling me Hextech Soul to EDG would be tragic to give over to Azeri and a comp that has constant chase like this.
Honestly, you don't want to be given any soul over towards the side of EDG because of Ala on this Jax. We'll have to wait and see because we have all summoners available for the side of LNG. So it should be a relatively messy team fight, especially if LNG do win the, I guess, overall Dragon. They can look towards that Baron because this up-and-coming fight is going to be key. But we'll have to wait and see because we have the Black Cleaver getting picked up by Ala as well. And they need to spot him out before he goes on a flank.
I mean, look, also FoFo almost towards the 3rd item too. Like, there's a lot of damage right now for EDG. Feeling confident enough with the 2K gold lead to try and equal up this series for 3rd seed at Worlds, and on to Tarzan we begin. Uzi now hanging off the edges. Meiko's going to be the new target with Winter's Bite. The poke damage good, but it's not enough to threaten them away from Dragon as we begin again.
You see LNG Tarzan already half HP and he has to walk in, he gets hooked.
Dredge line is there, Uzi zoning them off. Hung caught out with the kinematics down. Uzi jumps over the wall. He flashes out, that was psychotic. Depth charge comes through as LNG are trying to get them off with the Sun Turret in tow. Gala, great zoning as well. LNG back off, but remember, they're the ones to lose their support. Numbers advantage for EDG.
And you see Hung getting desperate, trying to look for any vision control over this Dragon.
Hello.
And unfortunately does.
Kenobi! Okay. Zika just slides out of there, but again, a 2-item Jax, you know exactly what Arla's thinking.
That's Dragon Soul Point for the side of EDG, and in another 5 minutes, they can honestly either contest for the Dragon or they just flip the Baron. So LNG, they are getting desperate, but they're going to sneak it.
Uzi's nearby though. I mean, they're walking into this pit. Kitty, it could be a turn from Tarzan, but he has no ulti. Teleport being channeled as EDG now matching. It's a dangerous play, but they're fully committing. Hung jumps in, Zika jumps in. Meiko gets the dredge line with FoFo. Now in the best spot. Look at the AoE. Arla as well. Ignites the crowd, but on his Jax, he's blown up. Scout, great DPS with Gala as they take the blast. Tarzan gets it. He's sent away to safety as Zeka flashes over the wall. LNG got away with it. Or did they? Or did they? Oh, Kitty, yes they did.
They just snuck this Baron away from EDG, and Tarzan flashing out of the pit and then deceiving the enemy team, but then utilizing the blast cone to go back in and winning the 50-50. This brings LNG back into the game and no longer gives EDG that kind of pressure that they could have gone for with the Soul.
How insane are LNG in high pressure situations? Again, Kitty, a macro move.
And you see Scout and Gala completely unthreatened going throughout this entire fight. Yes, Hung falls as a result, but that means the Varus and the Azir are DPSing, and Ala gets instantly just zoned out. And of course, the blast cone once again over the wall secures the Baron. And a Baron with an Azir, the siege is going to be absolutely insane. And with the amount of hard force that LNG has with its composition, I don't know if they're going to give time for Ala to go split push.
Well, as you said, I mean, LNG wanted to force a fight. They wanted to force the 5-on-5. They got their 5-on-5 in front of the Baron, or at least they got some gold injection to give them a bit more confidence boost. It's not the Baron over to EDG, which means that Baron power play simply feels like a denial at this point, Kitty. But hey, confidence there as they now look to push mid and break open the turret.
We do have several stopwatches for Zika, Scout, and of course the enemy top lane in Ala as well. But now you see EDG on a chokehold being forced to match the 5v5 in the mid lane. But that's where LNG shine as a composition. They want to be playing front to back and they want to be putting pressure to really take down this tier 1 tower.
So let me ask you though, EDG, do they have too much wave clear at the time being though? Because I know LNG feel comfortable in a 5v5, but I'm worried that Uzi, FoFo, both with the static shiv, waves even with Baron are still quite easy.
But because the side lane is so tragic for EDG right now, FoFo has already rotated towards the bottom side. Zika is on a ward though, so they do know the Renekton's on the side.
Yep, charges there. FoFo can have an opportunity, but the stopwatch you talked about used so well. It gets Zika out to a good spot, but Ala, even on a ward, is on a good flank. But there's a 3-man from Jiejie, trying to re-engage, and FoFo and Uzi are firing away. The Golden God is back on in it as Hung now in the middle, tries to delay, but he's dead too. 2 for Uzi, and EDG are back.
The hard force from Jiejie on this rel hits 3 men onto LNG, and a great choke for them to take. While Scout and Gala, they were completely separated from that T-fight, and that buys so much time and denies a lot from this Baron play of LNG.
I love that FoFo saw Tarzan and just ignored him. It's like, I've got a top wave to get. Replay time though, as Kitty, as you said, this force was pretty clutch.
Yeah, it kind of just felt like EDG, they were swarming in onto LNG, and the constant pressure that Ala was applying onto Scout and Gala in particular was absolutely devastating, because you also see the empowered Q from Gala missing, and that is huge damage gone for the side of LNG. And now you see the resets are coming online as the front line of EDG or LNG are abandoned in these 4v4s, but it's just such a terrible situation to be LNG because these Qs need to be hitting.
What a night and day performance though. Gala in game 1 on the Kaiser, picking up all the kills, really cleaning house. A good performance, you'd say. Gala here on the Varus in game number 2. Kitty, it's like a lot of LPL Varuses. I feel like very few and far between in this summer playoffs and even in summer itself have been exceptional.
Most definitely. As you see, Varus, a very strong early game champion that can get lane party, but when it comes to these team fights, especially with the meta being Rel, Maokai, Sejuani, a lot of great AoE force, it is going to be incredibly hard to survive until you get your GA or your Zhonya's if you do go that route without that cleanse available. But we'll have to wait and see. The whole the Hexol
really?
is going to be spawning
I don't know what's happening.
40 seconds.
All right, it's all right, Kitty. Don't worry about it. Look, you're getting excited for a game number 2 that could lead equal way. LNG and EDG are now fighting for a soul as LNG look for the turn onto Jiejie. That's a defensive kinematic ulti as FoFo is waiting for his moment. That AoE, insane from the Tristana as Ala just ignoring the fight.
The 4-1 composition is truly online for EDG. LNG, they need to sneak this away, but once again, Ala has that flank ability to go from the blue buff, so LNG, they need to be fast with this dragon.
EDG, I mean, it's Ocean Soul or it's a base in tatters. Ala firing away while, again, the health bars are low now for the TP. This is the flank of a lifetime. They want to equalize, they want to return to Worlds, and Edward Gaming will not take no for an answer. Onto Tarzan, he's on a low health bar. Scout the ulti does nothing, and Uzi chases down Hung with a deserved kill. Edward Gaming are alive in this series.
And FoFo TPs towards the bottom lane, working off that wave as well. He's going to get himself an inhibitor, and he's going to go into Gala.
This Tristana game 1 was a slide, but as he flashes forward, he solo kills the provincial ping.
And with that kill going into FoFo's pockets, EDG, they even out the scoreline to 1-1. They are truly online for tonight's series.
Welcome to the series for LNG. A little bit exhausted by game 2, but EDG will take it right off their hands.
I got a little bit too excited for that Dragon Soul fight, but who wouldn't be? Because it's Ala's Jax coming in for game 2, coming in clutch as well. Multiple flank angles onto the opposing team and completely putting Scout and Gala into an